The first thing Serafina Hale heard through her bedroom wall was her fiancé laughing at the word accident. The second thing she heard was Lady Corvina Marrow saying, "Snow hides foolish girls very well." Serafina stood in the middle of her chamber with a silver brush in one hand and a hunting boot in the other. The fire had burned low. The mirror showed a woman of 26 in a dark green house gown, hair half braided, face too still. At her feet, 8 royal winter hounds stopped chewing the same stolen slipper and lifted their heads together. Prince Orenvale spoke again on the other side of the carved panel. His voice had the lazy softness he used at council dinners. "She knows the forest paths. Make her trust the western stag trail. The ravine will do the rest." Corvina gave a small, delighted gasp. "You sound almost cruel." "Cruel would be breaking the betrothal in open court," Oren said. "This is cleaner. A tragic misdirection during the winter hunt. Her hounds will scatter. She will panic. By sunset, father will need a new bride for the border alliance." Serafina lowered the boot. Captain Biscuit, largest of the hounds, rose with the patience of a judge. Duchess followed. Buttons wagged once, then sneezed into the slipper. Oren added, "Besides, she is only the royal kennel master's pretty daughter. My father liked her mother's service record. That does not make her fit to sit beside me." The silver brush bent in Serafina's hand. For 3 breaths, she did nothing. That was important. Her mother had taught her not to loose a hound until the hound understood the shape of the field. So Serafina listened. She heard silk brush stone. She heard Oren lift a cup from the little table in the adjoining guest salon. She heard Corvina murmur that she had already moved the western trail markers. Then Serafina set the brush down and smiled at her hounds. "Good evening, respectable criminals," she whispered. "We're going to practice manners." Every tail began to move. She crossed the room, opened the hidden panel, and stepped into the guest salon with all 8 hounds at her skirts. Oren was standing too close to Corvina beside the wine table. His dark blue coat was unbuttoned at the throat. Corvina's white fur wrap sat over Serafina's own chair. They both turned at once. Serafina looked at the wine, the trail map, the shifted markers drawn in red ink, and the little knife Corvina had used to scrape wax from the royal hunt seals. "My lord," Serafina said, "my lady." Oren went pale. "Soha, this is not what it appears to be." "Excellent," she said, "because it appears to be a planned disappearance with poor handwriting." Corvina recovered faster. She smiled with her lips and not her eyes. "You should not enter rooms without knocking." Serafina lifted 2 fingers. Captain Biscuit put both front paws on Oren's chest and flattened him onto the carpet. Oren made a sound that would not have impressed a rabbit. Duchess seized the hem of his coat and dragged him 3 feet from the wine table. Buttons leapt on Corvina's fur wrap and shook it with such moral fury that white hair filled the air. Mutton, who had never respected royalty, placed one enormous paw on Oren's stomach and licked his chin. "Call them off," Oren shouted. "You wanted me lost in a ravine," Serafina said. "I want your collar buttons lost under a settee. We are not the same." Corvina shrieked when Pepper caught the sash of her gown and pulled it loose enough to tangle her ankles. No one was hurt. Only tailoring suffered. The hounds had been trained to catch sleeves, cloaks, straps, and pride. They did their work with frightening cheer. Serafina stepped over Oren's boot and took the trail map. She took the scraped seal knife. She took the little red pouch of false markers from Corvina's hand while the lady was busy trying to save her sleeve from foxglove. Oren tried to rise. Captain Biscuit lowered his head and breathed directly into the prince's face. "He has eaten boiled cabbage," Serafina warned. "Make choices with that knowledge." Oren froze. For one wild moment, laughter climbed Serafina's throat. It was sharp and bright and wrong. She let it out anyway. The sound startled Corvina more than the hounds had. Serafina backed toward the panel. "I will send someone for the furniture. You may want new furniture. Also new souls." "Sarah," Oren said, voice breaking. "You cannot do this. Watch me." She whistled once. 8 hounds released silk, wool, buttons, and dignity. They rushed after her through the panel. Serafina shut it, bolted it from her side, and ran. She laughed down the corridor until the laugh cracked. She laughed past the tapestry of the first winter hunt. She laughed down the servant's stair, while Buttons carried Corvina's fur wrap in his mouth like a fallen enemy banner. By the time she reached the kennels, The laugh had become a sob she could not swallow. The royal kennels were warm with straw, iron stoves, and dog breath. 32 hounds lifted their heads from their beds. The youngest pups tumbled over each other to reach her. The old lead bitch, Grandmother Pike, opened one eye and judged everyone. Serafina shut the kennel door behind her and pressed both hands to her mouth. Oren had planned the western ravine. Corvina had moved the markers. The prince had said only the kennel master's daughter. Only pretty, only useful until a cleaner bride appeared. Her knees weakened. Captain Biscuit leaned his weight against her thigh. Duchess pushed her head under Serafina's hand. Buttons dropped the fur wrap and sat on it, proud and unhelpful. Serafina allowed herself 12 breaths. On the 13th, she stood. Crying was permitted. Collapse was not. She crossed to the tack room and lit 2 lamps. The kennel ledgers waited in their cabinet. She pulled the winter feed book, the hunt route register, the injury log, and the sealed copy of the hound master's oath. Her mother had made 3 rules for a woman cornered by a noble house. First, leave with proof. Second, leave with witnesses. Third, leave loudly enough that silence becomes suspicious. Serafina took all 3 rules personally. She packed the ledgers in oilcloth. She strapped grain pouches to 6 sled harnesses. She opened the iron cage where the hunt whistles hung and took the black horn whistle that had belonged to her mother. Then she paused at the smallest hook. A child's whistle hung there on a frayed blue cord. It was plain bone, carved with a crooked moon. A boy had given it to her in a snowstorm when she was 8. He had found her crying under a pine before she ever came to the palace. He had wrapped his own scarf around her and said, very severely, that brave girls were still allowed to ask for help before freezing to death. She had never learned his name. Serafina put the old whistle around her neck. The hounds watched with bright eyes. "We are not sneaking away," she told them. "We are conducting a professional relocation." Grandmother Pike groaned. "Do not take that tone." 1 hour later, the eastern kennel gate opened on a sight the palace would discuss for years. Serafina Hale walked out under a hard white moon wearing her training coat, tall boots, and a belt full of whistles. Behind her came 32 royal winter hounds in travel harness. 6 dragged sleds of ledgers, feed, medicines, blankets, and 1 stolen white fur wrap that Buttons refused to surrender. At the front, Captain Biscuit carried Oren's torn collar in his mouth. Serafina stopped at the public hunt board in the stable court. She pinned the red pouch of false trail markers beside the royal map. Under it she wrote, in the bold hand her mother had beaten into her, "The Western Trail was tampered with. Ask Prince Oren why." After a moment, she added, "Do not feed traitors to the hounds. It upsets the hounds." The stable boys read it twice. One of them whispered, "Mistress Hale, where are you going?" "To the border," Serafina said. "The hounds require fresher company." Captain Biscuit wagged. No one stopped her. By dawn, the palace bells were behind them. The city road lay buried under clean snow, and Serafina had cried enough to leave salt on her scarf. Her hounds moved around her in disciplined waves. Some ran ahead to read the wind. Some guarded the sleds. Buttons kept trying to wear Corvina's fur wrap and falling sideways into drifts. Serafina should have gone south to her mother's cousin. She should have sought a magistrate. She should have stayed in the palace and forced a hearing before Oren could prepare his lies. Instead, she had chosen the border road. The border was where grain shortages were whispered about in the palace kitchens. It was where soldiers wrote complaints that disappeared inside sealed offices. It was where her mother had once said truth traveled faster because hungry men had less patience for court perfume. It was also the road Oren would least expect a kennel woman to take with 32 hounds and several sleds of incriminating paper. At mid-morning, Grandmother Pike stopped beside a frozen ditch and growled. Serafina raised a fist. Every hound halted. The road ahead curved through black firs. Beyond the firs came the low iron sound of horses moving under armor. Not palace riders. The rhythm was heavier, colder, controlled by people who expected ambush and had survived many. Captain Biscuit moved in front of Serafina. "Easy," she said. The first rider appeared between the trees. He was tall even on a tall black horse. A charcoal cloak hung from shoulders built for war rather than court. His hair was black, wind-torn, and swept back from a face cut with hard lines. A scar crossed the edge of his jaw. His eyes were the pale steel gold of an alpha who had stopped asking rooms for permission years ago. Behind him rode 20 border soldiers, all lean, all cold, all watching the hounds with the same wary calculation. The lead rider reined in. Serafina looked up at him. He looked down at her sleds, her hounds, her red eyes, and the stolen fur wrap currently wrapped around Button's middle. "Is this a rebellion?" he asked, "or a kennel exercise with poor paperwork?" Serafina wiped her face with the back of one glove. "That depends who is asking." General Rurik Voss of the Frost March. She stiffened. Every servant in the palace knew that name. The border alpha general was called cold-blooded by people who had never spent a winter without firewood. He had broken raider sieges, dragged 3 corrupt quartermasters to judgment, and once refused to bow to Oren at a feast until the prince apologized to a wounded soldier. Rurik's gaze moved over the hounds again. "And you are?" "Serafina Hale, Royal Hound Trainer. Former fiancé of Prince Oren, unless he has developed courage during breakfast." One of the soldiers coughed. Rurik did not blink. "Former? He planned to lose me in a ravine during the winter hunt. I objected with dogs." The general's horse shifted. Rurik's gloved hand tightened on the reins. "Did you kill him?" he asked. "No." "Did the dogs?" "Also no. They mauled his tailoring." A second soldier turned his face away. Rurik leaned slightly forward. Snow dusted the black sweep of his hair. "You left the palace with every royal hound." "Not every hound," Serafina said. "I left 3 elderly spaniels. They are politically unreliable." For a moment, his mouth changed. It was not a smile. It was the memory of one. Then a cartwheel cracked behind his line. A grain wagon lurched sideways in the road. 2 soldiers jumped down to steady it. One sack fell from the back, burst against a stone, and spilled pale kernels across the snow. Serafina smelled the problem before anyone spoke. The hounds smelled it too. Grandmother Pike lowered her nose. Captain Biscuit sneezed and looked offended. Rurik turned in the saddle. "Hold that sack." Serafina walked past him without asking. A border sergeant moved to block her, then stopped when 32 hounds politely considered removing him from the path. She crouched beside the torn sack. Wheat should smell dry, grassy, faintly sweet. This smelled of cellar mold, river silt, and something sharp that belonged in mortar. She pushed her fingers into the grain and rubbed. Grit scratched her glove. "Sand," she said. Rurik dismounted in one smooth motion. He landed close enough that she felt the impact through the frozen road. "How much?" Serafina lifted a handful. Grain and pale grit slid between her fingers. "Enough to cheat a scale. Enough to break teeth. Enough to starve a keep while the ledger says you were fed." The nearest soldiers went very still. Rurik crouched beside her. His shoulder nearly brushed hers. He smelled of cold leather, pine smoke, and iron discipline. Up close, his face looked younger than the stories and more tired than the scar allowed. "Can your hounds track where the sand entered the sacks?" he asked. Serafina glanced at the torn seal. The wax mark was royal blue, but the press had slipped. Her kennel ledgers tracked feed shipments by scent for the hunt dogs. Grain theft always left a trail if someone cared to put a nose to it. "Yes," she said, "if you stop breathing down my collar." His eyes lowered to the space between them. Serafina realized his gloved hand was braced on the snow beside hers. Their fingers were close enough for the heat of him to reach her through winter air. Her heart, treacherous animal, struck once against her ribs. Rurik did not move away. "I breathe where the evidence is," he said. "Then the evidence is about to file a complaint." A hound sneezed directly into the spilled grain. Serafina closed her eyes. "That is Mutton. He has strong views on fraud." Rurik looked at the hound, then back at Serafina. "Mistress Hale, I was writing to the capital to demand the grain owed to my garrisons. It appears the capital has sent me sand and a witness." "I am not capital property." "I did not say you were." His answer came too fast for courtesy. It landed between them with a weight she felt. Serafina stood. He stood with her. Because he was very tall and too close, she had to tilt her head back. Oren had used height as decoration. Rurik wore it like a wall built in a blizzard. "I can help you test the wagons," she said. "Then I keep moving." "Where?" "Away from ravines. The road ahead is borderland. Wolves answer to me there. Hounds answer to me everywhere." One of his eyebrows rose. Captain Biscuit chose that moment to sit on Rurik's boot. The general looked down. Serafina folded her arms. He is negotiating. For what? Possibly your boot. Possibly your soul. He is ambitious. Rurik's gaze returned to her face. The hard line of his mouth shifted again. This time the smile almost survived. Then we should draft terms, he said. The first test took place in the lee of the firs. Serafina cut open 6 sacks from 3 wagons. Rurik watched in silence while she separated wheat, grit, chaff, and seal threads on a square of dark cloth. His soldiers watched her hands with the hungry attention of men whose supper depended on facts. The result was worse than she expected. Every sack held sand. Some held more sand than grain. The mold hid at the center, where a careless inspector would miss it. 2 sacks had dead beetles. One had a pebble stamped with blue quarry dust from the capital's North Chapel works. Serafina held that pebble in her palm. This is not border sand, she said. This came from the palace district. Rurik's jaw tightened. The quartermaster swore the wagons were sealed at the royal granary. He may have sworn truthfully. Someone could have filled false sacks before sealing, or changed them in a holding yard. Can your ledgers prove that? My ledgers prove what the kennels received. They include cent notes for hound feed and hunt grain stores. My mother believed numbers lied less when dogs checked them. Your mother was sensible. She was terrifying. Good. Serafina looked up. Rurik's face had gone flat again, but his eyes were on her fingers. She realized she had rubbed the pebble so hard that grit had cut through her glove. A thin red line marked her thumb. Before she could hide it, he caught her wrist. The contact was careful. It still sent heat up her arm. His hand circled her wrist with complete control and no effort. She could feel the difference between restraint and weakness. He had both strength and the decision not to use it. Small cut, she said. Open skin in winter is not small. You command armies. Do you inspect every thumb? Only the ones holding evidence. His thumb pressed the heel of her glove back. The motion exposed the cut. He took a clean strip from inside his cloak and wrapped it around her thumb with efficient hands. Serafina meant to make a remark. The words left her when his knuckle brushed the inside of her palm. Rurik looked up. The space between them changed. Snow moved through the fir branches. The soldiers' voices faded. His fingers still held her wrist. His eyes had lowered to her mouth for one dangerous beat before returning to her face. Mistress Hale, he said quietly, you are shaking. I walked all night. That is not the only reason. Serafina should have pulled away. Instead, she leaned half an inch closer, angry that he had noticed, angrier that the notice did not feel cruel. Do you always diagnose witnesses? Only when they arrive with 32 hounds, a stolen fur, and evidence of a planned disappearance. A planned disappearance. Do not inflate my importance. I rarely need to inflate what is already large. His voice had gone lower. It struck under her ribs with an alarming lack of permission. Captain Biscuit sneezed between them. Serafina snatched her hand back. That was late but effective. Rurik looked at the hound. He objects. He believes bandages should be paid for in dried liver. Reasonable. The general gave the hound a strip from his saddlebag. Captain Biscuit accepted it with the solemnity of a treaty signing. By noon, Rurik had turned his column toward Frostgate Keep instead of the capital. Serafina objected immediately. I said I would help test wagons. I did not agree to become a military attachment. You have no safe lodging on this road, Rurik said. Prince Oren will send riders. My keep has walls, witnesses, and enough legal clerks to make a liar regret literacy. That sounded almost charming until the clerks. My charm is rationed. Your soldiers must suffer. They are alive. He said it without pride. Serafina heard the cost under it. They rode with her hound caravan between the grain wagons and the cavalry. Rurik offered her a spare horse. She refused and walked beside the sleds until the road iced over near a narrow bridge. Buttons slipped first. The sled lurched. Serafina grabbed the trace line, lost her footing, and slid toward the bridge rail. Rurik reached her before the hounds could. One arm locked around her waist and pulled her back against his chest. His other hand caught the sled rope. The motion stopped her hard enough to knock breath from her lungs. For one suspended second, Serafina stood pressed against him from shoulder to hip. His cloak wrapped around her side. His body was winter hard and living hot. She felt his breath at her hairline. Still objecting to military attachment? He asked against her ear. Her pulse did something humiliating. I object to bridges that betray women in public. The bridge will be disciplined. Severely? Without mercy. She looked down at his hand spread over her waist. He released the sled rope, but not her. His thumb had landed over the seam of her coat. Through wool and leather, she still felt the pressure of it. General, she said. Yes. Your soldiers are watching. They have been ordered to survive worse. Serafina turned her head. His face was close enough that she could see pale frost in his lashes. The cold-blooded Alpha General did not look cold now. He looked controlled by the width of a knife edge. I can stand, she said. I know. Then why are you still holding me? A pause opened. His answer was very quiet. Because you nearly fell. That was earlier. I am aware. The hounds began to howl. Not a danger howl. Worse, a delighted howl. Serafina closed her eyes as all 32 hounds announced to the entire road that their mistress was being held by a tall man and had not bitten him. Rurik released her slowly. Your pack reports everything, he said. They were raised in court. Gossip is in the mortar. The hounds kept howling until Grandmother Pike barked once. Silence fell at once. Rurik looked at the old bitch with respect. I want her on my council. You cannot afford her. What does she demand? Blankets, meat, and the right to judge men from a cushion. Half my council already does that. Serafina laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised them both. Rurik looked at her as if the laugh had shown him a door he had not known existed. Serafina looked away first. Frost Gate keep rose from the border cliffs at dusk. It was not beautiful in the palace sense. No gold domes, no painted saints, no perfumed arches. It was black stone, smoke, iron gates, and men on the walls with crossbows. The mountain wind struck it and broke. Hungry soldiers lined the yard when the wagons entered. Their cheeks were hollow. Their winter coats had been patched too often. A young guard in his early 20s stared at the grain sacks with such plain hope that Serafina's stomach twisted. Rurik dismounted before the main steps. No sack opens for the kitchens until Mistress Hale and my quartermaster inspect it, he ordered. Any man who steals before inspection eats sand first. The soldiers managed a tired laugh. A young woman in a brown grain-watch coat pushed through them with a ledger under one arm and a steel staff across her back. Her dark braid was pinned high, her nose had been broken once, and every starving soldier made room for her without being told. General, if the capital has sent us more rotten wheat, I am feeding the royal seals to the goats. Grain Watch Captain Marave, Rurik said. She monitors the border grain line, audits every wagon, and breaks the fingers of men who think hunger is paperwork. Captain, this is Serafina Hale, Royal Hound Trainer. She found sand in the shipment. Marave looked Serafina up and down. You brought dogs. Hounds, Serafina corrected. They eat. With enthusiasm. Then they are soldiers. Welcome. Serafina liked her at once. Marave gave no court bow. She offered Serafina a square nod, then crouched and held one hand toward Captain Biscuit. The hound sniffed her knuckles, sneezed once, and accepted her as a public servant with potential. He approves, Serafina said. Good, Marave replied. I have been rejected by bishops. I could not survive rejection by a working dog. Rurik said, Captain Vey is honest, armed, and impossible to flatter. A rare government office, Serafina said. Marave pointed her ledger at the sacks. Then let us make it useful before someone important lies at me. Within an hour, the keep yard became an inspection hall. Torches burned in iron baskets. Sacks were opened under guard. Serafina set hounds in pairs to scent mold, silt, and false grain oil. Marave weighed samples, sealed jars, and made every driver say his route aloud in front of witnesses. Rurik stood over the work with the stillness of a locked gate. One wagoner tried to step backward when Duchess found silt under the clean top layer. Marave caught him by the elbow, turned his wrist with neat efficiency, and sat him on a flour barrel before he could blink. Running makes ink suspicious, she told him. The wagoner swallowed. I was stretching, then stretched toward the truth. Serafina tried not to laugh and failed. Rurik looked at Marave with the expression of a commander watching a regulation write itself. More than half the shipment was fraudulent. The soldiers did not shout. That was worse. Hunger had already burned the noise out of them. Serafina watched a young guard pick 3 good kernels from a bad sack and place them in his pocket. Not stealing, saving proof that the good grain had existed somewhere before it was taken. Her throat tightened. Rurik saw her looking. "This is why I was riding to the capital," he said. The Frost March paid taxes in silver, timber, and service. The royal granary answered with excuses. Oren knew. "I sent 6 petitions." He signed 3 dismissals. The prince's name turned the cold inside her into a cleaner thing. "Then we will give him a 7th document," she said. "One he cannot dismiss." Rurik turned toward her. Serafina was tired. Her eyes burned. Her thumb hurt. Her heart had been dragged over stones by a man who had planned to lose her in snow. Yet standing in that yard, among hungry soldiers and honest hounds, she felt the first hard shape of purpose. "I need a table," she said. "A lamp, fresh wax, thread from every sack, a map of the capital granary yards, access to your petitions, and dried liver for the witnesses." Marave grunted. "The dog witnesses? They work cheap. Better than most inspectors," Marave said. "They cannot read a bribe and pretend it is weather." Captain Biscuit wagged once, as if accepting the promotion. Rurik's gaze did not leave Serafina's face. "You will have all of it, and I am not your prisoner." "No, I decide when to leave." "Yes, I keep my own room." His eyes changed at the edges. "Also yes." Serafina heard the roughness under the last answer and felt heat rise under her collar. She looked down at the ledgers before her face betrayed her. "Good," she said. "Then bring me your fraudulent wheat." Buttons trotted past, wearing Corvina's fur wrap again. Marave stared. "Why is that one dressed like a bankrupt duchess?" "Evidence," Serafina said. Rurik looked at the hound. "Against fashion? Against many things." They worked until the moon stood high over the keep. Serafina discovered 3 patterns before midnight. First, the worst sacks came from wagons marked with the blue seal of the Royal Chapel District. Second, the thread used to stitch them was not granary hemp, but fine white court cord. Third, each false sack carried a faint scent of rose oil. Corvina Mero wore rose oil. She had spilled it in Serafina's bedroom once, and complained that the hounds had sneezed for a day. When Serafina told Rurik, he did not look surprised. "Lady Mero's father owns warehouses near the chapel works," he said. "Of course he does. Her family also brokers grain contracts." "Of course they do. Prince Oren approved the winter reserve transfer 3 weeks ago." Serafina set down her pen. "Of course he did." The room assigned to the investigation had once been a chapel. It now held maps, sacks, scales, and hounds asleep under every bench. The hearth gave off a hard orange heat. Rurik stood at the long table beside Serafina, one hand braced near her inkpot. He had removed his armor. Without it, he looked less like a fortress and more dangerous. Black wool fit close across his shoulders. His throat was open at the collar, showing a narrow scar near the base. Serafina had not meant to notice. She noticed thoroughly. "You should sleep," he said. "So should you. I sleep when my keep is fed." "Then you have been awake since autumn." "Close." She looked up sharply. "That was not a joke. It was an approximation." "General." "Rurik," he said. The name sat in the warm room between them. Serafina looked down at her ledger. "You should not give me your first name while I am holding ink. I may use it to forge something." "What would you forge?" "A requisition for blankets." "Your hounds need more." "My hounds?" "Your soldiers, then." Quartermaster Mara, they classified mine as soldiers. "I am adapting." Rurik leaned closer to read the ledger lines she had marked. His arm brushed hers. Neither moved. "You blush when you are angry," he said. Serafina's pen stopped. "I do not." "You do. That is not useful evidence. It tells me when to stop speaking, and yet you continue, because I also want to see what happens." Her breath caught. The silence turned thick. Rurik's shoulder remained against hers. His hand shifted on the table, not touching her, close enough that one small movement would change the night. Serafina could smell soap on his skin under leather and smoke. She could see a tiny line of exhaustion beside his mouth. "What happens," she said very quietly, "is that I remember I was betrayed this morning." His face changed at once. He drew back by half a step, not in rejection but in discipline. Then I stop. The loss of heat annoyed her. The gentleness annoyed her more. Serafina turned toward him. I did not ask you to freeze. Rurik looked at her for a long moment. Tell me where the line is. I will stand on the correct side. That sounds very noble. It is practical. I do not want to become another man who takes your choices. Her anger softened before she could protect it. The line moves, she said. Today it is somewhere between being held on a bridge and being kissed over forged grain reports. His eyes lowered to her mouth. That is a narrow border, he said. You command borders. Not that one. For 3 breaths, neither of them moved. Then Buttons rolled under the table in his sleep, kicked both hind legs, and struck Rurik's boot with a thud. Serafina exhaled a laugh. Rurik looked down at the hound with calm betrayal. He has opinions, she said. He has terrible timing. No, that was good timing. Terrible timing would have been 2 breaths later. Rurik's gaze returned to her so fast her stomach dipped. Then I owe him dried liver, he said. She did not sleep much that night. Her room was small, clean, and plainly prepared by soldiers who had no idea what women needed but respected blankets. Someone had placed 4 on the bed, 2 on the chair, 1 over the washstand, and 1 on the floor where Captain Biscuit immediately lay down. Serafina took off her boots and sat on the edge of the bed. The old bone whistle rested against her throat. Oren's voice kept returning. Only. The word had teeth. She pressed both fists into the blanket. The tears came without drama this time. They came because she had once wanted a husband who laughed with her at morning hound chaos. She had once imagined Oren watching her train pups and saying he was proud. She had spent years turning his distracted affection into proof of a future. Now that future lay on a salon carpet under Captain Biscuit's paws. The door creaked. Serafina wiped her face. If you are a soldier, retreat. If you are a hound, enter quietly. Grandmother Pike pushed the door open with her nose. Behind her stood Rurik holding a covered cup. Serafina sat straighter. You are not a hound. I brought one as a credential. Grandmother Pike walked in and took the rug. Rurik remained outside the threshold. Marave makes a winter herb drink. It tastes like boiled pine in punishment. It helps with shock. You're selling it poorly. I am honest about beverages. She stood and crossed to the door. He handed her the cup without stepping inside. Steam curled between them. Thank you, she said. His gaze moved over her face. He saw the tears. He did not mention them. There will be riders from the capital by morning, he said. Oren will call you unstable. He will call the hound stolen property. He may claim you attacked him without cause. I left the trail markers on the hunt board. Good. I took the knife. Better. I made his collar a dog toy. This time Rurik did smile. It was small, brief, and devastating. Necessary, he said. Serafina looked down at the cup because looking at him became difficult. I am not unstable, she said. I know. I am angry and embarrassed and apparently wanted dead, but I am not unstable. I know. Do you say anything else? When required. She drank. The herb brew did taste like pine and punishment. She grimaced. Rurik watched her mouth again, then looked away as if the wall required military attention. General, she said. Rurik. Rurik. His name changed the air a second time. Serafina lifted the cup. Thank you for stopping at my door. Thank you for not entering without permission. And thank you for looking at the wall as if it insulted your ancestors. It did. What did it say? That I have poor judgment. Does it often tell the truth? His eyes came back to hers. Tonight, yes. The cup warmed her fingers. His voice warmed everything else. Serafina should have closed the door. Instead, she let herself stand there with one bare foot on cold stone and one hound snoring behind her. Rurik's shadow filled the threshold without crossing it. Sleep, Serafina, he said. The way he said her name made it feel less damaged. You too. I will try. That was not an agreement. No. She narrowed her eyes. You are difficult. I have references. She closed the door before she smiled too much. Morning at Frostgate Keep began with a horn, a curse, and a hound stealing a sausage from a lieutenant's hand. Serafina woke before the second horn. Habit pulled her from bed while the sky was still iron gray. At the palace, This was the hour she crossed the kennel yard with warm mash, brushed snow from every muzzle, and greeted each hound by title. The ritual had survived fevers, royal inspections, Oren's board visits, and one unfortunate spring when Buttons fell in love with a laundry basket. She found the Frostgate hounds, her own hounds, and 4 suspicious border mutts gathered in the lower yard around a cook who looked prepared to resign from life. Serafina put 2 fingers to her mouth and whistled. Every dog sat. The cook almost dropped the sausage pan. Rurik stood near the armory steps with a mug in hand. He wore no cloak despite the cold. His black training shirt clung to his shoulders, and his hair was still damp from washing. Serafina's brain, usually competent before breakfast, mislaid several useful thoughts. He watched her line the hounds in rows. "Good morning, honorable criminals," she said. 36 tails moved. "Captain Biscuit, you look innocent. That means you are guilty. Duchess, stop judging the cook. He has suffered enough. Mutton, remove your paw from that boot. It still contains a lieutenant. Buttons, if you are wearing stolen fur before sunrise, you must at least stand straight." The soldiers gathered on the steps began to grin. Serafina moved down the line, touching each nose. Every hound gave a different greeting. Captain Biscuit pressed his forehead into her palm. Duchess offered one paw. Mutton leaned so hard she had to brace. Grandmother Pike allowed one royal tap, and then looked away in contempt. When Serafina reached the young pups, she crouched. "And good morning to the tiny disasters. Did we dream of eating glove leather? We did. Did we repent? We did not." A laugh broke from the soldiers. Rurik's mug had stopped halfway to his mouth. Serafina straightened and caught him looking. For once, the general did not hide it. "What?" she asked. "I have watched men confess under interrogation with less discipline than those pups show for you. Pups respond to consistency, food, and being told when they are ridiculous. Men are less advanced." The soldiers laughed harder. Rurik's gaze warmed. "You may brief my officers after breakfast. On grain fraud. On being less advanced than pups." She pointed at him. "Do not tempt me before tea." Breakfast became a council because Frostgate had no talent for leisure. They gathered in the old chapel room again. Marave brought porridge thinned beyond pride. Rurik's captains brought maps, petitions, and a stack of replies from the capital. Serafina read them with growing rage. The palace had dismissed every complaint as border exaggeration. The Crown Office claimed weather delays. The Granary Office claimed rodent loss. Oren had signed one note in his own hand. General Voss must learn that hunger makes wolves dramatic. Serafina stared at that line until the ink blurred. "Week set beside hit." His knee brushed hers under the table. It might have been accidental. It did not move. "He wrote this while my men were cutting mold from bread," Rurik said. "He wrote it because he has never watched a young border guard save 3 kernels in his pocket," she answered. A captain with a scarred cheek looked up. "You saw Tobin do that?" "Yes." The room quieted. Serafina closed the letter. "We need more than proof of bad grain. We need proof of intent, profit, and chain of custody. If this is only incompetence, Oren will blame a clerk. If it is theft, he will blame a dead clerk. If Lady Marrow's family is involved, they will blame a foreign merchant." Marave nodded. "Then we need their own numbers." "And scent," Serafina said. "Numbers can be copied. Scent travels poorly through lies." Rurik pointed to the capital map. 3 places: Royal Granary, Chapel Warehouse, North Weighing Yard. The wagons passed all 3 before coming to us. "The rose oil was in the sacks," Serafina said. "Corvina touched them, or her personal servants did." One officer frowned. "Could perfume cling that long? To court cord, yes. To wax, less so. To hounds, forever, because they are petty archivists." Duchess lifted her head from under the table, as if sighted. Rurik leaned toward the map. His shoulder touched Serafina's again. This time the contact lasted. "If I ride to the capital now, Oren will bar the gates. He cannot bar the winter hunt." Marave's eyes sharpened. Serafina tapped the marked route register. "All noble houses must attend in 3 days. The hunt opens the Old Oath Road. Hounds, riders, grain sponsors, chapel officers, and border envoys gather in one place. If I accuse him there, he cannot hide the accusation inside a clerk's drawer." "Dangerous," Rurik said. "Yes." "Public." "Yes." He already planned to lose you there. Then he will expect fear, not an audit. Rurik turned his head toward her. His eyes were close. You intend to walk back into the trap? No, I intend to bring the trap witnesses. Captain Biscuit sneezed under the table. An illegal team, she added. Preferably one that bites cloth. The plan required a day of ugly work. Serafina sorted thread samples. Marave wrote chain of custody statements in a hand so sharp it looked capable of cutting bread. Rurik's captains interviewed wagoners who had been too frightened to speak before. Marave found the turn in the route first. She slapped one inked finger onto the map. Here. Every false wagon stopped at the chapel warehouse after the royal seal was applied. Honest wagons passed straight through. Rotten ones took the pretty road. The pretty road? Serafina asked. The one with guards who call theft logistics. A pattern emerged. Each driver had been told the delay came from Prince Oren's personal hunt preparations. Each received a sealed coin purse from a Marrow steward. Each had also been warned that Captain Vey was a hysterical woman who disliked noble accounting. Marave smiled without warmth. I adore noble accounting. It confesses when you hold it upside down. By afternoon, Rurik sent 3 scouts to intercept one such steward on the road. They returned with the steward, 2 purses, and a face that suggested he had considered running until Captain Biscuit smiled at him. The steward broke in 7 minutes. Serafina did not enjoy the man's fear. She enjoyed his documents. He carried a small coded invoice listing good grain weights, sand weights, and payments to chapel warehouse guards. The largest notation bore Corvina's private mark, a rose pierced by a pin. Beneath it was an instruction. Prince Oren wants the kennel woman away before the hearing. Make sure the western trail remains open. Rurik read the line once. The room grew cold. He gave a written order, Marave said. A stupid written order. She laid the document flat and pinned one corner with her thumb. A fresh bruise darkened her knuckles from the wagoner who had tried to be athletic with the truth. He did not write, I am stealing grain because I am a peacock with a title, Marave said. Sadly, the order is enough. It moves the western trail open, pulls the hound master away, and sends the chapel warehouse officers to handle the sealed sacks without public weighers. Serafina looked from the order to the map. So Oren did not just want me gone. He needed my hounds gone. Marave nodded. A lie is easiest when the noses are removed. Buttons lifted his head from the corner, deeply offended on behalf of noses everywhere. Vanity makes people use stationery, Serafina said. Her voice sounded steadier than her hands felt. Rurik noticed. He always noticed. He took the paper from her fingers before she crushed it. Walk with me, he said. It was not a request, but it was not a command either. It was a rope thrown before she sank. They left the chapel room through a side door and stepped into the wall walk. The wind hit hard. Below, the hounds chased one another between snow piles while soldiers pretended not to watch. Beyond the keep, the border forest stretched dark and white toward the old hunt road. Serafina gripped the stone parapet. I wanted to humiliate him. I wanted his buttons scattered. I wanted him frightened for 1/10 of the time he meant me to be frightened. You did humiliate him. Not enough. Rurik stood beside her, close enough to block part of the wind. No, not enough. The agreement loosened something in her chest. People keep expecting me to be sad in a quiet way, she said. I am sad, but I also want to knock his teeth loose with a ledger. A heavy ledger? The feed register from last winter. 400 pages. Excellent spine. Practical. She looked at him. Rurik's face remained serious, but his eyes were not. That nearly undid her. Serafina laughed once, then covered her mouth. The laugh shook into a sob. She hated that. She hated him witnessing it. She hated that he did not look away in embarrassment or step forward to smother her in comfort she had not requested. He simply opened his cloak. Not his arms. His cloak. The offer was absurdly formal and dangerously intimate. That is not a military tactic, she said. It is shelter. Shelter often becomes tactic in male hands. Then take the cloak, not the man. She looked at the black wool hanging open. He was letting cold into his own shirt. The wind cut across the wall and lifted her hair from its braid. She stepped closer before courage could cool. Rurik wrapped the cloak around her shoulders. For a while neither spoke. She stood against his chest, facing the forest. His arms held the cloak around her, not trapping, not loose either. The warmth was immediate and unfair. Serafina's cheek brushed his shirt. His heart beat slow under her ear, though she could feel how much of that steadiness was work. "You are very warm for someone called cold-blooded," she said. The title was assigned by idiots. Many titles are. His chin almost touched her hair. "What title would you choose?" "For you. For yourself." She went still. Only the kennel master's daughter. Only pretty. The wind dragged snow along the parapet. "I do not know any more," she said. His arms tightened by a fraction. "Then do not let him name you while you are still bleeding." The words entered quietly and stayed. Serafina turned inside the cloak. They were too close. Her hands landed against his chest to steady herself. Muscles shifted under her palms. Rurik looked down at her hands first, then her face. "There," she said, softer than she meant. "That sounded wise. Are you ill? Severely? Symptoms?" "Poor judgment." Wall confirmed it. She smiled. His gaze dropped to that smile. The air between them tightened again. This time no hound stood near enough to save them. Rurik lifted one hand slowly, giving her time to step back. She did not. His fingers touched a loose strand of hair at her cheek and drew it away from her mouth. Serafina forgot the wind. "This is near the line," he said. "Yes." "Has it moved?" "A little." "Which direction?" She rose on her toes and kissed the corner of his mouth. It was brief. Barely a kiss. Still, it struck through both of them. Rurik inhaled once, sharply. His hand moved to the back of her neck, then stopped before pressure became demand. Serafina felt that restraint. She liked it. She resented it. She wanted to test it with scientific cruelty. "That was not forged grain reports," she whispered. "No." It was also not quite a kiss. His thumb brushed the hair below her ear. "Do you require accuracy?" "In all investigations." Rurik bent his head. Captain Biscuit barked from the yard below. A soldier shouted. "General, the steward fainted again." Rurik closed his eyes. Serafina dropped her forehead against his chest and began to laugh. 2 breaths later, she said, "I am going to promote that dog to enemy command." "You cannot. He already holds a senior office." The laughter lasted longer than it should have. When it ended, the grief had not vanished. Nothing so convenient happened, but grief no longer held the only chair inside her. That evening, a palace rider reached Frostgate with a sealed order. Rurik received him in the keep hall with Serafina at his right and 32 hounds occupying the lower steps. The rider's face twitched when Buttons sniffed his boot. The order accused Serafina Hale of theft, assault, and emotional volatility. It demanded the immediate return of the royal hounds, the stolen hunt ledgers, and Lady Marrow's white fur wrap. It described Prince Oren's injuries as severe humiliation, though the scribe had crossed out humiliation and replaced it with bruising. Serafina appreciated the first draft. Rurik read the letter aloud without expression. Then he looked at the rider. "Reply," he said. "The hounds are material witnesses in a grain fraud investigation. The ledgers are evidence. The fur wrap is being held by a dog of uncertain allegiance. Prince Oren may petition the Winter Hunt Tribunal if he wishes to dispute custody." The rider swallowed. "My general, His Highness also says Mistress Hale is not to attend the hunt." Serafina stepped forward. "How thoughtful. Did he mention the ravine?" The rider looked away too fast. Rurik saw it. So did every soldier in the hall. "Ask him," Serafina said pleasantly, "whether he wants me to bring the red trail markers, or whether he prefers to identify them from memory." The rider left at speed. The next day passed in preparation. Serafina trained the hounds to identify 3 scents: chapel quarry dust, rose oil, and mold hidden under clean grain. Rurik assigned soldiers to carry evidence chests and protect witnesses. Marave prepared duplicate ledgers, so no one could steal the only proof. Near noon, Rurik found Serafina in the lower yard teaching border soldiers how to work with the hounds. "Do not shout," she told them. "A hound hears better than your conscience. Keep your hand low. Offer scent cloth flat. Do not wave it in his face unless you want him to think you are the clue." A broad soldier named Jory held out a cloth to Duchess. Duchess sniffed, turned, and sat in front of Rurik. The yard went quiet. Serafina covered her smile. "Interesting." Rurik looked at the hound. "Explain." Duchess found the scent on you. What scent? Serafina took the cloth from Jory. It held pine soap, smoke, and the faint iron tang of Rurik's armor oil. Apparently the exercise cloth was not grain fraud, she said. It was you. Jory looked horrified. General, I did not mean to imply you were evidence. Everyone is evidence eventually, Rurik said. Serafina liked that too much. Rurik walked toward her. The soldiers suddenly found reasons to adjust straps, examine snow, and become furniture. He stopped close enough that Duchess, still seated, had to lean against both their legs. You are enjoying this, he said. Immensely. At my expense. Your expense appears durable. His mouth curved. What is the correction? For a false alert? The handler apologizes to the hound, resets the scent, and praises the correct behavior. Then apologize. I am not the handler. You are always the handler. That should not have sounded intimate. It did. Serafina held his gaze. Fine. Duchess, I apologize for asking you to identify fraud when General Voss was standing nearby being suspiciously scented. Duchess wagged once. Rurik bent, took the scent cloth, and held it out again. His shoulder brushed Serafina's hip as he crouched. She felt the contact all the way up her spine. Try again, he told the hound. Duchess sniffed the corrected cloth, crossed the yard, and put her nose on a marked sand sack. The soldiers cheered. Rurik stood. Good. Serafina looked up at him. That is all. Good. She saved your honor. My honor has survived worse than a hound's nose. Has it survived wearing Corvina's fur wrap? His eyes narrowed. Do not test command structure. I would never. Buttons appeared behind him dragging the white wrap. The entire yard inhaled. Rurik did not turn around. Mistress Hale. Yes. Is there a hound behind me with enemy fabric? No. A pause. Define no. There is a hound behind you with evidence. Jory made a strangled sound. Rurik turned. Buttons placed the wrap over the general's boot and looked proud. Serafina expected Rurik to scowl. Instead he reached down, lifted the wrap, and draped it over one forearm as if accepting a ceremonial mantle. If I must enter the winter hunt with this, he said, I will declare war on fashion. The soldiers laughed until Marave shouted that anyone with lungs that strong could carry evidence chests. Later, when the yard emptied, Rurik walked Serafina to the kennels built against the inner wall. The hounds settled around them in straw and lamplight. Outside, wind climbed the stones. Inside, the smells of clean fur, leather, and warm mash wrapped around her like something close to home. Rurik stopped beside a pen of young hounds. You look different here. Covered in hair? At ease. She fed a pup from her palm. Kennels make sense. Eat, work, play, sleep. If a hound loves you, he shows it. If he hates you, he also shows it. Court could learn from that. You belong there less than they told you. Her hands stilled. Do not be kind just because I am useful, she said. I am not kind. That is your defense. It is my reputation. Your reputation is terrible company. I know. The quiet after that was not uncomfortable. It was worse. It invited honesty. Serafina touched the old bone whistle at her throat. Rurik's eyes followed the motion. Where did you get that? He asked. A boy gave it to me when I was little. Before the palace. I got lost during a winter market storm. He found me under a pine, wrapped me in a blue scarf, and scolded me for freezing quietly. Rurik went still. Serafina looked at him. What? He reached toward the whistle, stopped, and lowered his hand. It was not blue. Her breath caught. What? The scarf was gray when my mother made it. I had fallen through creek ice the week before and stained it with the dye from a merchant's glove. It looked blue after that. The kennel sounds faded. Serafina's fingers closed around the whistle. You! Rurik's face had lost its hard command. Under it stood a boy with serious eyes in a snowstorm. I was 14, he said. You were very small, very angry, and determined not to cry where anyone could see. I was 8. You told me brave girls did not make noise. And you said brave girls were allowed to ask before becoming decorative ice. I was not diplomatic. A laugh escaped her, soft and stunned. You were rude. You were freezing. I kept the whistle. His gaze moved over her face in a way that felt almost painful. I looked for you the next morning. The market had cleared. No one knew where the little girl with the hound pup had gone. My mother found me first. She nearly killed 3 guards in one weather vane. Then she took service at the palace 2 years later. I remembered you, he said. The words were plain. They did not feel plain. Seraphine against the rail because her knees had become unreliable. You remembered a lost child? I remembered a girl who corrected my knot while shivering. I tied the scarf badly. You were offended. It was a terrible knot. I improved. His voice had dropped. Seraphina looked at the man before her, the general with scarred hands, the alpha who stood at thresholds, the boy who had given her a whistle without asking for anything back. Something in her chest shifted from interest into recognition. Not fate. She did not trust words that removed choice. Recognition was different. Recognition said, "There you are, and I decide what that means." "You saved me once," she said. "Your mother saved you. I found you first. Do not argue with a woman holding 32 witnesses." He stepped closer. "I am not arguing. You look like you are. I am trying not to touch you." The confession struck clean. Seraphina's fingers tightened on the rail. "Why?" "Because you learned today that I was part of an old memory that can make a person feel cornered by gratitude. You think too much. Often. Stop for a minute." His eyes darkened. She took his hand and set it at her waist. Rurik went completely still. The touch was over coat and corset and wool, but his fingers spread as if he had been made to hold that exact line of her body and punished for discovering it late. Seraphina stepped closer until the toes of her boots touched his. Her free hand rested against his chest. "I am not grateful right now," she said. "I am tired, angry, and choosing badly on purpose." His thumb moved once at her waist. "This is not bad. It may be unwise. Most things worth guarding are." She lifted her face. He bent slowly. This kiss was accurate. It began carefully, because both of them were too aware of what had broken behind her. Then his hand tightened at her waist, and hers slid up to the back of his neck, and careful became something warmer. He tasted of winter herb drink, and restraint finally given a task. Seraphina rose higher on her toes. Rurik's other arm came around her back, steady and firm, pulling her closer without taking the choice from her feet. A pup sneezed. Neither of them stopped. Another pup barked. Rurik made a low sound against her mouth that had nothing to do with command. Seraphina smiled into the kiss before she could help it. Grandmother Pike barked once. They separated at once. The old bitch stared from her cushion with ancient disapproval. Seraphina pressed both hands to Rurik's chest and breathed. Breaths later. That was adequate timing. Rurik rested his forehead near hers. "I dislike that hound less now. Her approval is difficult to win." I noticed. The hound settled again. Seraphina should have been frightened by how quickly her body had trusted his. She was frightened. She was also alive in a way grief had tried to smother. Rurik touched the whistle cord lightly. "Keep this visible at the hunt." "Why?" "Old border law honors a rescue token. It proves I knew you before court could buy or name you. If Oren claims you manipulated me for protection, I will show that I owed you none and gave it anyway. You did not owe me protection." "No, and you are not giving it anyway." His eyes searched hers. She tapped his chest. "You are giving me soldiers, clerks, evidence chests, and a very severe quartermaster. I will protect myself in public. You may stand close enough to make stupid people reconsider their hobbies." Rurik's slow smile returned. "That I can do." "Good." "Seraphina." "Yes. After the hunt, when the evidence is read and your name is yours again, I will ask if the line has moved farther." Heat climbed her neck. "That is arrogant. It is strategic patience. You make patience sound indecent. Only near you." Grandmother Pike barked again. Seraphina pointed at the old hound. "Do not judge me. You had 6 mates and bit 3. Rurik choked on a laugh. The hunt began under a sky the color of polished steel. The royal forest lay 2 hours from the capital, where old pines crowded a ceremonial road lined with antler poles and blue banners. Noble houses arrived in fur and jewels. Priests from the Moon Chapel carried silver bowls. Merchants brought decorated grain baskets for public blessing. Border soldiers entered last, without decoration, pulling sealed evidence chests on sleds. Seraphina rode at the front of the hounds. She wore no bridal white. She had chosen her dark green training coat, polished boots, and her mother's black horn whistle at her belt. The old bone whistle lay visible at her throat. 32 hounds moved around her in perfect formation. Buttons wore no fur wrap today because Marave had locked it in an evidence chest after discovering he had tried to trade it for sausage. Rurik rode beside Serafina on his black horse. He wore border armor under a plain cloak. No jewel marked him. He did not need one. People moved aside because their bodies understood him before their pride did. Whispers rippled through the gathered houses. There she is. She stole the hounds. He brought the border wolf. Prince Oren stood on the high viewing platform beside King Albrecht, Lady Corvina, and the council. Oren's collar sat high enough to hide several bruises. Corvina wore a pale blue gown and a new white fur wrap. Her smile thinned when she saw Serafina. Serafina smiled back. Captain Biscuit showed his teeth in what might have been joy. The master of ceremonies lifted a staff. By royal command, the winter hunt opens with the prince's first trail. Objection, Serafina said. Her voice carried because she had trained hounds across wind for 10 years. The staff faltered. Oren leaned forward. Mistress Hale has no standing to interrupt royal ceremony. She is under accusation for theft and assault. Serafina rode closer to the platform. Rurik stayed at her shoulder, silent and immense. I have standing under the Hound Master's oath, she said. If the hunt trail is tampered with, the trainer may halt the hunt before the first horn. If royal hounds are used to conceal a crime, the trainer may demand witness track before all packs. A murmur moved through the old nobles. They knew the law. They had forgotten it because kennel people rarely had enough power to use it. King Albrecht frowned. He was a broad man with tired eyes and a crown too heavy for his neck. Serafina, child, this is not the time. She flinched at child, then steadied. Your Majesty, Prince Oren and Lady Corvina planned to send me down the western ravine during this hunt. Lady Corvina moved trail markers. Prince Oren approved it. I have the markers, the map, the seal knife, and witnesses. Oren laughed. It sounded practiced. Witnesses? Dogs? Yes, Serafina said. They are less corrupt than men. Dangerous amount of the crowd agreed out loud. Corvina stepped forward. This is a hysterical performance. She attacked us with animals because she could not accept that the prince preferred a more suitable bride. The old wound opened. Serafina let the crowd see it for one heartbeat. Then she closed her hand around the reins. A more suitable bride would not need a ravine. Laughter broke from the lower ranks. Corvina's face tightened. Rurik spoke for the first time. The Frost March also enters accusation. The royal grain sent to my garrisons was cut with sand, mold, and false weight. Evidence links the fraud to chapel warehouses controlled by House Marrow and authorized under the prince's winter reserve order. Oren's gaze snapped to him. General Voss, you overstep. I underfed my temper for 3 months, Rurik said. Do not call that overstep. The border soldiers struck spear, butts against the snow. King Albrecht lifted a hand. Enough. These are grave claims. They will be heard after the hunt. Serafina's stomach dropped. After the hunt meant time to hide evidence, silence witnesses, and trigger the same trap under ceremony. She raised the blackhorn whistle. No, she said. The entire field stilled. King Albrecht stared at her. Serafina's voice shook once, then steadied. The oath says before the first horn. Not after. The hounds are not decorations, Your Majesty. The hunt is not a toy for princes. If the western trail remains open while the accusation stands, every rider here enters a tampered course. If the grain blessing proceeds while sand sits in royal sacks, every hungry border child hears the crown bless fraud. The king's face changed. Oren saw it and struck fast. She is manipulating you with kennel law. Father, she is angry because I ended a childish match. She stole royal animals. She fled the palace in the night. Serafina dismounted. Snow crunched under her boots. I left in the night, she said. After you planned to leave me in the snow. I took ledgers, hounds, and proof. That is not flight. That is transportation of evidence. Rurik dismounted behind her. He did not touch her. She felt him there anyway. The master of ceremonies looked helplessly at the king. Before the king could answer, Corvina smiled again. Then let the hounds track, she said. If Mistress Hale trusts beasts more than nobles, let beasts decide. Serafina did not like how easily Corvina agreed. Rurik's hand brushed the back of Serafina's glove. One brief contact. Warning, not command. Corvina turned to the crowd. Let them track the western markers. If her accusation is true, the hounds will find my scent, yes? If not, she should surrender the hounds and accept a healer's rest. A healer's rest meant quiet confinement. Oren looked relieved. Serafina understood the trap. Corvina had replaced the marker scent. She wanted a simple track because she had cleaned the obvious clue. So Serafina changed the game. Agreed, she said. The hounds will track 3 things everyone can understand. Your rose oil, the Marrow warehouse seal, and the prince's own grain order. We will begin with your new fur wrap, Lady Corvina. Corvina's smile froze. Buttons, sitting beside Mara Vey's evidence chest, perked up with religious interest. Mara Vey stepped forward and opened the first chest. Inside lay the original white fur wrap, along with Corvina's scraped wax knife and red markers. The crowd leaned in. That is my property, Corvina snapped. Yes, Serafina said. It has been very useful. Buttons wagged as if thanked personally. The king rubbed a hand over his face. Proceed. The hound track became the most watched ceremony in winter hunt history. Serafina gave Duchess the fur wrap scent first. Duchess crossed the snow, ignored Corvina's current wrap, and put her nose on the trail map table beside the platform. Then she pawed at the underside. A clerk lifted the tablecloth. 3 spare red markers were taped beneath the wood. The crowd erupted. Oren shouted. Anyone could have put those there. Correct, Serafina said. So we continue. Mutton tracked the Marrow warehouse seal from the false sacks to a chapel guard satchel. The guard tried to run. Mara Vey moved first, swept his ankle with her staff, caught his collar before his face met the snow, and set him on his knees with insulting politeness. The satchel held seal wax, rose oil, and a payment token marked with House Marrow's rose. Corvina's mother fainted with excellent timing. No one helped quickly. Grandmother Pike tracked the same sour warehouse dust to 2 Marrow wagons parked behind the blessing tent. Under the canvas, good wheat filled the top layer of each display basket. Sand and mold filled the lower sacks meant for public shipment after ceremony. The border soldiers began to shout. Rurik raised one hand. They fell silent, but the silence had claws. Serafina looked at Oren. His face had lost its handsome laziness. Without it, he looked smaller. You signed the transfer, she said. I signed what my officers prepared. And the note about me? She turned to Mara Vey. Mara Vey opened the second chest and handed the steward's order to the king's clerk. The clerk read the line aloud. Keep the kennel woman away from the hearing. Leave the western trail open. Ovi. The field went so Serafina heard harness bells in the far snow. Oren's eyes flicked from the king to the nobles to Rurik. Then they landed on Serafina and filled with a hatred that finally looked honest. You should have stayed grateful, he said. The words carried. Rurik moved. Serafina caught his wrist before he crossed the space. His whole body stopped under her hand. The power in that pause shook her more than movement would have. Mine, she said quietly. This part is mine. Rurik's eyes burned down into hers. Then he stepped back. Serafina faced Oren. I was grateful, she said. For work. For a place in the kennels. There's oath being honored. You mistook gratitude for ownership because no one taught you to see women who arrive with useful hands. Oren's mouth twisted. You think a few dogs and a border brute make you powerful? Captain Biscuit growled. Rurik did not. That was more frightening. Corvina seized the moment. She lifted a silver whistle from her sleeve and blew 3 sharp notes. The sound cut through the field. Several strange wolves burst from the tree line. They were not palace hounds. They were paid winter riders in white hunting wraps, hidden low among the trees. They ran for the evidence chests, not the crowd. Serafina understood the trick at once. Ruin the proof, blame panic, and call the hearing unsafe. Serafina blew the black horn whistle. Her hounds surged. No wounds. No frenzy. She had trained them for crowd control, not harm. Captain Biscuit hit the first attacker in the chest and drove him into a snowbank. Duchess caught a white cloth sleeve and spun another rider sideways. Mutton seized a satchel strap and dragged its owner in a circle until the man begged for stillness. Border soldiers closed around the evidence chests. Oren grabbed Serafina from behind. his arm locked across her shoulders. The silver edge of a ceremonial hunt knife flashed near her collar, too close for comfort. The crowd recoiled. Rurik froze 10 steps away. Serafina felt Oren shaking. "Call them off," he hissed. "Call them off, or I will make this ugly." Fear flashed through her body, bright and old. Snow. Ravine. Only. Then Captain Biscuit saw the blade and lunged. "Stay," Serafina shouted. The hound stopped mid-charge, claws tearing lines through snow. The command rippled outward. Every hound froze. Every border wolf turned. Oren laughed against her ear. "There. That is what you are. A trainer. A servant with tricks." Something opened under Serafina's skin. It was not gentle. It was not a pretty glow from a tail. It felt like winter cracking a locked river. Her mother's black whistle burned at her belt. The bone whistle at her throat turned cold enough to bite. Every wolf sound in the clearing struck her blood as language. She heard panic, hunger, shame, rage, obedience forced through bad orders. She heard Rurik's wolf as a low thunder held behind iron, furious because she had told him not to move. Serafina drew one breath. The old oath rose in her memory. Her mother had made her repeat it every winter before the first hunt. The hounds do not belong to the crown. The crown belongs to the one who keeps the pack alive. Oren's grip tightened. Serafina spoke, and her voice carried over the entire field without strain. "Kneel." Every wolf in the clearing went to one knee. Not the humans, not the hounds, the wolves. The hired shifters collapsed first. Then the palace wolf guards. Then 3 noble alphas who had been standing near the platform, faces white with shock. At last, Rurik's knee struck the snow. His eyes stayed on Serafina. The sight nearly broke her concentration. Rurik Voss, border general, cold-blooded alpha, kneeling because her blood had commanded every wolf in reach. Oren did not kneel. He had no true wolf in him, only borrowed authority and a title. Serafina understood before anyone spoke. A sound moved through the crowd. Old Winter Line. Old Kennel Oath. Winter Steward. King Albrecht stood. His face had gone ashen. Oren's grip loosened. Serafina drove her heel into his instep. He yelped. She caught his wrist, turned under his arm the way she taught handlers to escape a tangled lead, and slammed his hand against his own chest. The ceremonial blade fell into the snow. Captain Biscuit sprang, caught Oren's coat sleeve, and dragged him face first into a drift. The field exploded into noise. Serafina did not look away from the kneeling wolves. Her body shook with the force moving through it. She could command them to stay down. She could command them to crawl. The power invited cruelty with a sweet, cold voice. Then she saw Tobin, the young guard with kernels in his pocket, kneeling among the border wolves. His face was frightened, not of her exactly, but of what power might do when it finally changed hands. Serafina released the command. "Stand," she said, "by your own will." The wolves rose slowly. Rurik stood last. Snow clung to one knee of his black trousers. His face held no humiliation, only awe, anger, and something that looked dangerously like devotion. Serafina pointed to the evidence chests. "Read the grain oath. All of it." The king's clerk hesitated. Rurik turned his head. "Read." The clerk read. The old winter grain oath was plain enough for every rider, cook, and kennel girl to understand. The crown had one winter duty before all ceremony: feed the border honestly. Any heir who stole grain, falsified hunt trails, or threatened the hound master's witnesses lost winter authority before the assembly. At the final clause, the clerk's voice broke. If the crown fails the pack, the winter steward may take charge until the packs choose succession openly. Everyone looked at Serafina. She looked at... The king gripped the rail of the platform. Age had turned him slow, but not stupid. His eyes moved from the fraudulent sacks to the kneeling wolves, to Oren spitting snow while Captain Biscuit sat on his back, to Corvina trying to edge behind her mother. "Your mother," he said to Serafina, voice rough. "Leora Hale. She was not only kennel master." Serafina's throat tightened. "No," the king said. "She was my cousin's child, born of the old winter line. She refused court. I gave her service because she demanded work instead of empty honors." Serafina heard whispers become a roar. Not a hidden princess in silk. Not a girl raised for a throne. A kennel woman's daughter with an old winter claim, public evidence, and 32 hounds who had better manners than the royal heir. Oren lifted his snow-covered head. "Father, you cannot be serious. She is a servant." King Albrecht looked at him. Something in the old man's face hardened at last. "You are stripped of hunt command," he said. "You are stripped of winter reserve authority. You will be confined pending full council judgment. House Marrow's warehouses are seized for audit and repayment to the Frost March. Lady Corvina Marrow is detained for conspiracy, grain fraud, and attempted evidence destruction." His voice carried harder. "Every high officer who signed, sealed, ordered, or protected the false grain will stand public judgment under the winter grain oath. If the evidence proves deliberate starvation, the sentence is death. There will be no private pardon behind a velvet curtain." The chapel warehouse officers went white. One granary lord dropped his ceremonial cup into the snow. Marave caught it with one boot before the wine could splash the evidence chest. "Littering during treason," she said. "Bold." Several terrified clerks laughed before remembering they were terrified. Corvina screamed then. It was not elegant. Buttons barked at her once, offended by the pitch. The king turned back to Serafina. "The old law requires a steward. Will you claim it?" The field seemed to tilt. Rurik stood 10 steps away, hands loose at his sides. He did not nod. He did not prompt. He only watched her with a face that said he would hold the line whatever she chose. Serafina thought of the palace kennel at dawn. She thought of her mother oiling leather straps by lamplight. She thought of hungry soldiers, false sacks, a boy saving 3 colonels, Oren's hand at her collar, and wolves kneeling because power had finally answered the wrong person in the field. She also thought of the danger. Power did not become clean because it changed hands. Someone had to scrub it daily. Serafina lifted her chin. "I will claim stewardship," she said. "Not as decoration, not as bride, not as grateful servant. I claim it under the grain oath until the packs can choose openly. First order, Frost March receives full grain from seized marrow stores before sunset. Second, all reserve ledgers become public record. Third, Prince Oren's confinement includes basic food, clean blankets, and no ravines. We are not becoming him." The crowd stared. Then Marave struck her ledger against a shield. One border soldier followed. Then another. The sound spread across the field, shield, staff, boot, spear, hand. It became approval not polished enough for court, but strong enough to shake snow from the banners. Rurik bowed his head. Not a court bow. A border oath. Serafina's eyes stung. Captain Biscuit dragged Oren 3 more inches for emphasis. "Enough," Serafina said. The hound released him immediately. "Thank you," Oren gasped. Captain Biscuit sneezed into his hair. The first act of Serafina's rule was not dramatic. She signed grain release orders with hands that would not stop trembling. Marave stood on her left correcting totals. Rurik stood on her right, making anyone who approached with nonsense reconsider. Border soldiers loaded seized marrow grain into inspected wagons. Hounds checked every sack before it moved. Court nobles tried to speak to Serafina in the new tone people used for power they had recently mocked. She disliked it intensely. One lord bowed so low his hat feather brushed Mutton's nose. Mutton ate the feather. Feather theft? Feather redistribution. A promising snow had melted in his hair. One knee of his trousers remained wet from kneeling under her command. Guilt pricked. About the field. I did not mean to force you down. I know. I hated seeing it. I know. Stop saying that as if it fixes things. Rurik took the signed order from her and passed it to Marave. Then he turned Serafina gently by the elbow, guiding her behind a banner pole where the crowd could not read her mouth. His touch was light. It steadied anyway. "Listen to me," he said. "You stopped hired wolves without bloodshed. Took his power. Do not spend your first hour as steward apologizing